it's time to talk about Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
Could he be the first running back MVP in the last 12 years? And cuz you an Eagles fan, the mic is yours.
Yeah. I mean, why would not say no? Yes, he could be. Now, don't get me wrong. This is still a quarterback award. So he's going to have to do something phenomenal. He's going to have to do something historical. He's going to have to threaten records. He's going to have to do, he's on pace. That's to be clear. He's on pace to have the most yards from scrimmage, the most rushing yards in the season. He's on pace to do all of those things. But it's a quarterback award. But right now, no quarterback besides Lamar is really standing out statistically, right? Now, you got people that's winning. Josh Allen is winning games. But from a statistical perspective, Josh Allen's not blowing us away. So from that perspective alone, Saquon could squeak in, right? A lot of things got to happen for him to win this MVP. Like I said, he got to put up historical numbers where he got to threaten some records, right? He might have to pull off the #1 seed, just to be clear. It ain't out of reach, but these are things that are going to have to fall in the line. I mean, Detroit going to have to slip somewhere. Philly going to the #1 seed, and he might slip in. And plus, if Lamar don't win the division, right, they stay as a wild card behind Pittsburgh. Yeah, Saquon could slip in. But after that, this is a quarterback award. So no matter really what stats he put up, if things don't fall his way, they won't give him the award. That don't mean he won't be worthy of it, though.
Zach, you up, man?
Yeah, Lil. So I'll say this. I remember the day the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley in free agency, the first thought that came to my mind was I think he could have a similar impact with the Eagles as Christian McCaffrey did with the 49ers. You saw when the 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey, that offense went from really good to borderline unstoppable, especially last year. And honestly, I didn't give this move enough credit because this guy has been the best running back in the league. I think he's firmly in the MVP conversation.
Yep.
And Fred, I don't know if you have an opinion on this as a fan of the team, someone who follows them closely, but like this Eagles offense right now is better, I think, than the one 2 years ago that went to the Super Bowl. And I think Nick Sirianni deserves credit for that. This is a guy that's caught a lot of heat, but hey, the bottom line is since this guy cut his hair, the Eagles haven't lost. They've won 7 games in a row. And I also think, and this is more of a general, topic if we want to get into it, but I think the Eagles are establishing themselves as just a very complete team. I remember that team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Their defense was just not trustworthy. They were good, not great. I think this defense is really coming on, playing as one of the better defenses in the league. But you're seeing that even without Jason Kelce, Saquon Barkley is really elevating this Eagles offense. And I've been very impressed. I thought that was going to be a little bit of a tricky game going into LA on Sunday night. And right now, I think the MVP is Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen, neck and neck. I think you can go either way.
Yep.
I agree with Fred's point on Lamar Jackson. If he doesn't win his division, I don't know how you could give him the award. And the thing with Josh Allen is I understand his numbers aren't spectacular compared to, what we've seen in years past. Obviously, the interceptions are down, which is a good thing. And he just is coming off that big win and that big moment he had against the Chiefs. But I think the problem with Saquon Barkley's candidacy is it's very hard to win it as a running back. Yep. We haven't seen, as Lil mentioned, a guy at that position win it since Adrian Peterson. But also, like, this Eagles offense is loaded. They have Jalen Hurts. They have A.J. Brown. They have a very good offensive line. And when you look at Josh Allen in Buffalo, it's apparent that if you take him off the team, they're just not very good. They're not going to be anything close to that same team. And also the quarterback is the most valuable position in sports. So I think right now, gun to my head, I would vote for Josh Allen, but Saquon is right there and he should be in the MVP conversation. And if we want to get into this, we can too, but man, the Giants, I mean, I don't know how you sleep at night, not only letting this guy go, but letting Xavier McKinney go, trading Leonard Williams, letting go of Julian Love. Like there are guys I feel like all around the league that are former Giants that are doing damage with their new teams. And that franchise is just in a rough spot right now. We all saw Malik Neighbors and his comments after the game, which were pretty alarming. But yeah, credit to Saquon. That was an all-time game he had on Sunday night. And I think signing him and bringing him in could be a game changer for this Eagles team.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, y'all been preaching to me the last few years that the running back position is not valuable, and now y'all want me to believe that this cat is a front runner. Some of y'all want me to believe that he's a front runner, much less in a discussion, when for years, for the last 2 to 3 years, y'all been telling me that the running back position is not valuable. It doesn't make any sense, folks. And look, salute to Saquon Barkley. He ran for 255 yards on Sunday Night Football in front of primetime television with a lot of eyes, right? Like about 5 runs of 50 yards or more this whole entire season, showing that dynamic ability. We all know his skill sets, right? But y'all disrespected the running back position for years. Ever since Todd Gurley got that 4-year, $57 million contract in 2018, and we saw his production instantly decline, y'all ran with that narrative. Right. Y'all created the narrative. Y'all ran with it. That's the thing about it. Narratives are created, folks. They're not organic. Somebody had to create the narrative, and then people run with the narrative. Nobody do it more than football. The narratives in the game of football, and I get it, it's a week-to-week sport, very short, so everything is an overreaction. Oh, Saquon Barkley had a monster day. He's an MVP. I wasn't talking about that last week, though. Last week, y'all was talking about Derrick Henry, offensive rookie of the year, player of the year, and now y'all came to me this week and tell me that he's not only in the candidacy, but a front runner? When he wasn't even the guy y'all put over Derrick Henry? That's what I'm talking about in the game of football. And so look at my guy, Kenny, he brought it up to me. He was like, yo, y'all do it what the NFL takes, man. Y'all overdo it. And he's right. Nobody does it more overreacting than football fans. And I get it. It's no shame. That's what we love to do. But we got to chill, folks. I mean, look, let's go back to the basics, like my guy Cuzzo would say. Okay, because Cuzzo's an Eagles fan. He should know. He should have said. He probably knows it, but he probably didn't say it because he's probably overreacting. Okay, but my cousin should have been the one to school everybody here on the show because he's an Eagles fan, but I'm going to do it. Okay, the Eagles offensive line is the MVP of the team. Okay, have you ever heard of Miles Sanders? All right, he ran for 1,269 yards in 2022. My guy can't even beat out Trooper Hubbard in Carolina. He's about to get cut. Okay, have you ever heard of DeAndre Swift? He's been in the league 5 years. Only had one 1,000-yard season. Guess what team it was? Last year, the Eagles. Okay? And look at the line. You got Mekhi Becton. Zach, you ain't bring it up. That's your guy from New York Jets. The bus man, right? Now he's playing right guard, and he's putting it down on God. Okay? He's reviving his career. Nobody's talking about that right now. So my point being is that it's not to shame Saquon Barkley. Hell of a talent, hell of a generational talent, but he's not the MVP. And we all know that Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, right? We all knew they were going to have great years. Why? Because Derrick Henry was going to play with the former MVP in Lamar Jackson, and Saquon Barkley was going to go to a team that made the Super Bowl 2 years ago that got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and the best offensive line in football.
Well,
no,
cousin.
No, he's not.
I hear you, but we ain't talking about 1,200 and something yards. We're talking about 2,000 yards. We're talking about threatening a record that's 40 years old. Eric Dickerson, 1984. We're talking about probably the greatest season a running back has ever had. I think that was Chris Johnson. I want to say 2009, 2,500 yards from scrimmage. We're talking about historical numbers, not just good numbers. So from a historical perspective, yes, and he's finishing the game. That's how we're winning these games. He's ending the game. He's impacting the game. No disrespect to Jalen Hurts. He was a turnover machine for a minute. You know what I mean? Now that he can throw it back there to Saquon, guess what? He ain't throwing the ball a lot. He's only throwing the ball 20 times a game. So if he's only throwing the ball 20 times a game, and we're running the ball 40 times a game, and we're the number one rushing team, and the main reason why we're winning is running, and the explosive plays is Saquon, offensive line is playing phenomenal. But Saquon makes it sensational. Saquon makes it explosive. Okay? 70-yard touchdowns, 50-yard gains. Miles Sanders wasn't doing that. Swift wasn't doing that. So those are good, solid running backs. He's an outstanding running back. And it's resulting into wins, bro. And that's a factor.
Wins is definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
But like I said, y'all was telling me for the last couple of years
No,
that
I
the
get
running
you. I
back
get what you're
position is
saying.
not valuable.
Listen,
And,
I
and
get
look,
it.
and look, I get the point that you're trying to make. They winning games. He's on a historical pace. But the
Right.
reality is the most important position in the NFL, something that we all could agree on, is quarterback. You take
But
away Jalen Hurts from this team right now, this team is not going to be where we think
that's
they're
it.
going to be.
No,
Right?
no.
You take away Lamar Jackson from the Ravens, even though
Right.
Derrick Henry's having a good year, they're not
Right.
going to be where we
Cliff.
think they're going to be. So at the
I,
end of it all, they are not the MVPs of their team, and thus they should not be the MVP of the league.
but here's the thing, cousin. Real quick, Zach, before you go, real quick. Here's the thing. So right now, as the Eagles, as a team, the reason why Saquon is affecting the team is because not just the running and historical numbers and helping Jalen Hurts with the play action fake, and now we got receivers open downfield. Defensively, because we're ball controlling, our defense is getting rest. Because we're ball controlling, they're not playing a lot of possessions. It's affecting the team throughout. And I'm seeing this team being affected throughout, defensively, offensively. And like you said, Zach, 2022, the defense, although we had a historical number as far as sacks was concerned, we didn't cover well. Yes, we got some good corners, some rookie corners on the back end right now, but that's helping them too because they're not playing a lot of possessions. And when you make a team one-dimensional because we try to jump out on the lead, and they know once we get the ball, they don't got a lot of time to score. Yeah, it changes the dynamics. It changes the play calling. He's affecting the team. He's affecting the coaches. He might be the MVP of the Eagles, although Jalen Hurts is the quarterback. And that's why I think if he go with these historical numbers, MVP of the league.
Zach, let me ask you a question because I wanted to let you get in here. So I'm gonna let you answer this. Is there a difference between most valuable person on the team and the most important person on the team? Because I think there is, right?
Yeah.
For example, I could take my Knicks for example. Jalen Brunson is the most valuable player on the Knicks. However, I do think the most important player on the Knicks is OG Anunoby, right? So when you talk about the Eagles, to me, Saquon Barkley is the most important part of the team. I think if he was to get injured, the team would change drastically. But the MVP of the team to me is Jalen Hurts. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with your point about just in general there being a difference between most valuable and most important. Like I think the Knicks example you brought up was a good one. But the thing with the Eagles, and I think like where this might hurt Saquon's case is like you could make the argument AJ Brown is the most valuable, important piece to this team because when he's not on the field, this offense is a lot different.
Yeah.
And one last thing on Saquon, too. I think what helps him, again, I would probably give the slight edge to Josh Allen right now, even though it's neck and neck. I just thought this game on Sunday night, like no one was even talking about this guy as a candidate before this game. And I'm not saying I would vote for him, but what I'm saying is he is firmly in the mix right now and he could easily get it. But I just think, like, yes, the Eagles' offensive line has always been good. And the coaching changes have been a huge, huge difference maker this season. Yeah. But if you look at the personnel on the offensive side of the ball, this team is mostly the same outside of Saquon as last year. And we know what happened with this team last year. They completely fell apart down the stretch. And now they're playing like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So no matter what your opinion is on running back and the overall value of the position, there's no denying that adding this guy and bringing him in has drastically changed this team's outlook. It's changed this team's ceiling, and that's why I think he deserves to be in the conversation.
But that's because the ecosystem is there. He was kind of like the missing piece. Think about it. This guy was on the Giants. The Giants this year is trash without him, but guess what? They was trash with him last year. So it doesn't really affect the Giants. So at the end of it all, I get it. The numbers are crazy. He's averaging 6.7 yards or something like that per run. I mean, that's crazy, but he wasn't doing that last year. Why? Because the offensive line stink, the quarterback stink. Well, guess what? He has a quarterback. He has the best offensive line in football. The team is well balanced on both sides of the ball. You still got AJ Brown. You got to worry about on the perimeter. You still got Devontae Smith. You got to worry about on the perimeter. And now he's able to do his thing and be more effective with his skill set because of where he's at. He was not going to do this on the Giants this year at all.
No, but let's be fair. 2 years ago, I think he had like 1,300 yards, led the Giants to a playoff with a playoff win. And he was
a couple years ago, and Daniel Jones was formidable that year.
Right. I'm just saying though, he's impactful, bro. He's impactful.
My last point, real quickly here, is looking at it from the Giants' perspective, real quickly here, because I think Zach brought it up. Look, do the Giants miss Saquon Barkley? Indeed, they miss Eli Manning too. Okay,
Yeah.
but the reality is this came at a time where they did him dirty, where it came with the narratives that I talked about, the created narrative in a lab that running backs are not valuable to their team, right? And there's a
Right.
difference. They're not the most valuable position, but they still have value to their football teams, and they're allowed in the walk. And now we see this year that the running backs are having like this little renaissance where you see, Joe Mixon playing better. He didn't play good last week, but the week before he had 3 touchdowns. You have Derrick Henry still doing his thing, and you have about 20 running backs, like my guy Zay alluded to in his take for 99, that's about to have 1,000 yards. They're on their way to 1,000 yards. So to me, instead of us really having this discussion, to me, that I don't really think should be a discussion. I don't think he's going to win the award. Now, I didn't say he's not in the discussion now. I don't think he's the front runner. But even if we think he's in the discussion, it's not going to matter. He's not going to win it. Not in today's era of football. The discussion we need to have is the discussion that Zay and I started to have, which is the disrespect now being negated towards the running back position because of the years that they have in this year. Excuse me.
Real quick, I agree. If you go back to what I said in my opening statement, was a lot of things that will have to happen for him to win it. I don't think he's going to win it. I mean, a lot of things will have to happen. So from that perspective alone, no, I don't think he's going to win it. But Zach, you said it best. He's definitely in the
mix. I mean, Josh Allen would have to get kidnapped and be shipped off to Africa. Lamar Jackson would have to be like Michael Vick with the dogs and get suspended from the league.
If Lamar Jackson don't win the division, I got Saquon over him, bro. I'm sorry. He got to win that division.
I just want to respond to the point about running backs and their value, because I just think this is just a classic example of it just really depending on your team's specific situation. And if you think paying a running back or letting that running back go could help you, because first of all, the Giants taking Saquon Barkley with the number 2 pick in the 2018 draft was the worst decision they've ever made. I don't care how good he was in New York, because adding a running back there was just not something that was going to push you over the edge. When you're drafting a running back in the top 10, I prefer you to be a team that is ready to win. And that Giant team thought they weren't. And as great as Saquon was in New York, he didn't win anything. So I didn't think that draft pick was great. Now we're seeing guys like Saquon. We're seeing guys like Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon, teams that are ready to win, that spent money on the running back position in this offseason. That has really helped them. But then on the other side of the argument, you have a guy in Jonathan Taylor who a couple of years ago was looking like one of the best running backs in the league. He gets paid and he's fallen off a cliff. He looks like a completely different player now. And I don't really know what happened to him, but I could tell you right now, the Colts are really regretting that contract. So I just think you really have to evaluate the player and see, and really take a deep dive into your team. Like, is this move really going to be worth it? Is it really going to help put us over the edge? Because I think it's done that with the Eagles. I think it's done that with the Ravens. I think you can make the case it's done with that with the Packers and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, don't forget about Josh Jacobs.
That's a team that has really helped by adding him. Even the Vikings with Aaron Jones, I think he's been good this season. So I think you really just have to evaluate your team and say, okay, does adding a running back here make sense? Is this going to be a move that helps us win and puts us over the top? And that's how you play it. I don't really stand on one side of, you shouldn't pay running backs or you should pay running backs. I think in certain situations you should, in certain situations you shouldn't.
And the same thing could be said about quarterbacks.
Right.
Look at Trevor Lawrence. Where are you now? Look at Dak Prescott. Where are you now? Look at Jordan Love. He's all right. Right, but he's leading the league in interceptions right now. He's a little cautious right there, right?
And
look at all these quarterbacks.
Right? Passing is down across the league.
Yeah, look at CJ Stroud this year, right? I mean, you have a lot of mediocre quarterback play. So, it's a case-by-case evaluation in all positions, not just the running backs, right? And I think we unfairly, put this pedestal when it comes to the running back position. But mainly it's a self-created narrative that one or two bad apples spoils it for the rest. And we have to realize that it's leverage here, When you talk about the owners, they have a franchise tag. They can tag you and make sure you don't go anywhere. And they use it for the running back position financially because it benefits them. Right? So we run with the narrative. But running backs has always been contributing to their teams winning championships.
Clear.
You need a running game. You do. That helps the quarterback out.
And one last point with the Giants, and I'm going to harp on this. Okay. I understand, and you saw this if you watched the Hard Knocks during the offseason. It was clear they wanted to draft a quarterback in this past year's draft. And it makes sense considering 6 quarterbacks won in the first round. And right now, all of these guys look pretty promising. You look at the class this upcoming year, it's nowhere close to as good. There are going to be 2, maybe 3 guys drafted in the first round. And I just feel like the Giants, as good of a player as Malik Neighbors is going to be, what is his worth and what is his value on your team if he doesn't have a quarterback? And I think based on his post-game comments on Sunday, you're already seeing the ramifications of that. I think if I were the Giants, and I said this during the draft, I said it many times throughout the offseason, they had to find a way to leave this draft with a quarterback, and I would have brought back Saquon to help that guy. Look, I don't know what's going on with Brian Daboll. He doesn't look like the same guy that I saw 2 years ago that was leading this team to a playoff appearance out of nowhere and leading them to a playoff berth. The GM has made a ton of terrible mistakes that I think could ultimately cost him his job sooner rather than later. But I just feel like the Giants are going to regret the way they handled this offseason, because I heard a lot of Giant fans saying, oh, yeah, we sucked with Saquon. We could suck without him. And, oh, we found this cat, Tyrone Tracy, who looks like a good young player, but he's a 5th-round pick. And more importantly, he's not Saquon Barkley. And I just think if you would have had one of these quarterbacks, like a Michael Penix, like a J.J. McCarthy, even if you wanted to give up your whole future for Jaden Daniels or Drake May, which they really should have done, and maybe paired that guy with Saquon, like, I just think this franchise would be in a much better situation right now. And the bottom line is that team 2 years ago that we've mentioned that they got to the playoffs and they beat the Vikings, Saquon Barkley was the guy in that offense that stirred the drink, not Daniel Jones. They decided to pay the wrong guy, and they're ultimately paying for it right now.
They're paying for it.
I mean, my last point is they should have traded him. If they knew that they was going to play this game in free agency and allow him to seek his market. And that's, like I said, it all boiled down to the narrative because they thought that he wasn't going to get. You heard Joe Sheen, like, we'll pay him, let him go test the waters. We'll pay him, right? He didn't believe that he could come up with the money that he came up with, and he did. And, that's why narrative sometimes, can mess things up, especially if you follow it. They should have took care of him or they should have traded him. And, yeah, I mean, you say Tyrone Tracy is not Saquon. Well, 99% of the league ain't Saquon.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.